Have you ever thought of real estate as a professional career? Many people have, and little wonder. It's an exciting, important, and rewarding profession. But the real estate profession is also a demanding one. And that's something few people realize. Over the course of 4 programs, we're going to take a look at just how demanding. And by doing so, help you decide if you're truly suited to a career in real estate. Welcome to the third of 4 programs in our series, A Career in Real Estate. I'm your host, David Higgins, and I've been a real estate practitioner and a licensed broker for 22 years. And it's my intention over the course of this series to give you insight into just what it means to be a real estate professional. We began that study in Program 2 with a look at the listing function, where the groundwork and ground rules of a real estate transaction are established. In today's program, we're going to study the next 2 stages, prospecting and qualifying, including qualifying needs, qualifying finances, and a discussion on mortgages. Prospecting means looking for potential buyers. We'll see and hear real estate professionals talk about where and how buyers can be located. Qualifying is what you do once you've located a potential buyer. It is the process you go through to determine that buyer's housing needs and financial capabilities in order to match them with the house that best suits their situation. That latter step, determining financing, is one of the most complex yet fascinating aspects of a real estate transaction, and we're going to spend a good portion of today's program dealing with it. In particular, we're going to take a detailed look at mortgages, what real estate professionals need to know about financing a purchase and why. As in previous programs, I'll be drawing your attention to the important skills and qualities that a real estate professional should possess in order to help you make a decision about your own suitability for the profession. Some of the skills we'll talk about today include mathematics, problem solving, and effective communications. Those last qualities are particularly evident when we listen to real estate professionals talk about prospecting.
One of the first things I do when I list a home is I bring the information back to the office and I go through our records that are mostly on computer now, and I try to find somebody that a buyer that may have called in the past looking for the features that this home has.
As you're in the business for some time, you tend to start filing purchasers. So you go back into your own file and say, oh yes, I remember, this is going to be absolutely perfect for Mary and Fred. So away you go to Mary and Fred and you start your phone calls.
Quite often I've entered a new listing and the features of that listing into the computer, and it's matched me up with people that have called that are immediate prospects for that home.
The second way to look for purchasers is to ask for them. Ask people you know. Do you know anybody looking for a house? Asking is the only way you'll find out. So often after the fact they'll say, oh, I didn't know you were in real estate. My daughter, sister, whatever, just bought a home. So I think you have to ask for it and let people know you're in the business.
If you phone up people that you have recently sold a house to, and you know basically the price range that they've been in, the age group they are, and on a small assumption you have to believe that they have friends who are in the same situation and perhaps would like to be up with their new friends in their new house. So they're a wonderful source.
Even if it's a friend at a cocktail party that says, oh, I saw a house for sale, how much is it? The next morning, make the call, find out, and call them back. Get their interest stirred up, get their enthusiasm stirred up. Don't wait till a week later when you're at the gym and you see them again. Turn them into a purchaser.
Prospecting for me in this business is talking. In a lot of cases, is talking to my bank managers, and not just my bank managers and people in the banks and trust companies that I'm aware of that could be knowing people that are coming in from out of town.
If I fail to find a prospect for the home this way, I immediately go into my marketing plan, and my marketing plan runs under common sense. Basically, the more people that are exposed to the home, the more people are going to call on that house, the more showings I'm going to get, and the higher price that house is going to sell for. And that's under agency law. That's my duty to the seller. Some of the ways that I use to promote homes are the newspaper. I use the local television. I send flyers out on the home to both the public and to other realtors.
Give them the information. Type up nice flyers or have pictures done, and make sure that you give it to them, because you know that they've got a clientele as well.
I try to think of creative ways in order to put these homes that I have listed in front of as many prospective purchasers and sales reps that are working with prospective buyers as possible.
The bottom line is sitting in the office or sitting at home is not going to find a purchaser. You have to be out there handing out cards, showing your face around, let people know you're in real estate. If that means doing lots of open houses, knocking on doors, whatever, do it, but get out there. The phone's not going to ring for you. You have to make it ring.
I think digging for prospects requires a number of things of you as an individual. It requires initiative because no one is going to go out and search for potential buyers on your behalf. It requires people skills. You need to create a good first impression and be able to generate a potential buyer's trust and confidence. And it requires creativity. There is no one method for locating buyers. Everyone develops their own techniques. Now, once you have made contact with a potential buyer, you need to set up a face-to-face meeting. This meeting is essentially an interview in which you seek information that will help you determine which listing you have on file that best suits these people. This is known as the qualifying stage. Qualifying is a two-step process. First, you need to find out what their physical, social, and family needs are in terms of a property. Then you need to find out the price range of property that they can comfortably afford. Now let's start by listening to some real estate professionals talk about qualifying needs.
When you first meet someone and they say to you, I'd like to buy a house, I understand it's a great time to buy a house, then that's super, you're halfway there. But the problem is what they're looking for and what they can afford, or the neighborhood they can afford, is often very different.
With a first-time buyer especially, defining what they want and what they need can be very difficult, and it's a situation where practice makes perfect. You'll find that with a first-time buyer, probably more than 50% of the time, they're unsure of what they want.
People don't always know what it is they want. They think they do. But basically it comes down to their needs and their wants and what the difference is between those two things.
So it's really a matter of getting to their needs, what they need, and trying to help them find what's best for them.
Before I take anybody to see any houses, I always have a preliminary meeting with them.
The first meeting with a purchaser doesn't take place, or shouldn't take place, running out looking at houses. The first meeting with a purchaser should take place around the kitchen table or in your office, talking about what they see themselves in. What kind of house do they like? What kind of house did they grow up in?
We spend one evening or one afternoon together just talking about what it is they want, what it is they need, where it is they'd like to be located, why they're moving, you know, how large their family might be at some future point.
So, how far along are you?
3 months.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
That's great news.
Yeah, we're really happy about it.
Oh, thank you very much.
This time it's going to be a boy.
Well, I can see the need to move into a larger house. That's great. Okay, shall we get back at it? Okay.
You know, I really thought that house I phoned about was just what we needed.
Yeah.
Well, not if you need to be that close to a bus route, and not if you're adding to your family within the next year. But don't worry, we'll find you just the right home. Let's just get ourselves a clearer picture of it here.
If I take the initial time when I speak to the buyer to find out exactly what his or her needs are, it's going to save me a lot of time showing the prospective buyer homes that they don't want. I want to make use of my time, and I want to make use of their time. I don't want to waste their time. So that's what they're relying on me for is my expertise, my knowledge of the area and what's out there to try find them what they want as quick as possible, rather than looking at hundreds of homes to narrow it down to the best, maybe 5 to 10 homes for their viewing.
I do have a standard list of questions which I run through, but those are basically prompts. What I like to do is just have a conversation and get to know people. Then you find out what they're looking for.
Having a bit of your own insight to find out what you feel would be best for them.
Sometimes if you do that qualifying interview in their home, whether living with their parents or they already live in one home or they live in an apartment, that's a good starting point. You see how they live now, so you know what their expectations are for what they're looking for.
It's a bit of a bit half art and it's half science, and with experience you get a lot better at it.
Now, we've gone over schools, churches, shops, now property. Have you thought about what size of a yard you might be needing?
Yeah,
I think
small.
large.
I'm not cutting the grass. I don't cut grass. I hate grass.
It's not gonna be grass. It's gonna be a vegetable garden.
Then I'll end up weeding. I hate weeding. I hate anything green.
We have enough of it in here.
Yeah, all hers.
Okay, how about this? I'll write down a relatively small yard, but big enough to accommodate a working garden.
I'm not weeding.
Okay, Kim's in the garden. But where are you? Do you have any hobbies or pastimes?
Armchair quarterback.
Yeah, I used to restore antiques and stuff like that.
Oh, great. Is this something you're looking to take up again in the future?
Sure. Yeah, it's always in the back of my mind, I guess.
Okay, so what do we need for this then? Maybe a workroom or a room with separate ventilation?
Yeah, you like to keep the materials out of harm's way, so some kind of basement space or something?
Okay, great.
Having good listening skills while qualifying purchasers is one of the key characteristics you have to have as a sales rep.
You do have to have good interviewing skills because I think that the questions you ask are the ones that you have to live with in the next few weeks as you're working with these people and providing them with your knowledge of the real estate market out in the area. Because if you do not ask the right questions right off the bat, you do not know really what you're looking for. And here again, it goes back to listening again. Listening to what they want, listening to what they need, and putting it all together as a package for them.
You have to read into what people want and understand their wants and needs so that you can find what's right for them. And your listening skills are something that either you have to have or have to learn to have to be able to help people find the home that they really want. And it's going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to save your prospective purchaser a lot of time as well, as if you have good listening skills.
So, I think from that we can add some additional skills to our bag of real estate sales tools. You need to develop an interviewing technique, because believe me, it's not always easy getting people to talk. You need some leadership skills in order to keep that interview on track. Remember, you're in charge here, and you need to learn to listen. I've seen so many people who think selling means talking, when in reality, it's the exact opposite. You also need to have done your homework before you go into that first meeting. You have to know what questions you're going to ask and have answers ready for their questions. Sometimes the most difficult questions to ask are those that have to do with people's finances. It's not easy to ask such personal questions, and people are often reluctant to answer. Pre-qualification forms can often help. It's an important step because knowing someone's financial status helps to narrow down the range of properties you need to show, and it gives you a better idea of how a lending institution will react to a request for a mortgage.
Everybody's financial situation is different, and of course, that's a very basic question that you need to ask a purchaser when they come into your office. A, how much of a down payment do they have? That certainly makes it easy if they've got more than 5% or 10%. It gives you more latitude in what they can buy and how easily they'll be qualified for a mortgage.
Whenever the mortgage application is reviewed, there are two main concerns that the lender looks at. We look at how good the borrower is. That means we check the credit rating of the borrower.
It's a rather delicate subject. I have found in the past that people aren't always 100% honest with you. They'll tell you how much they've got. They'll tell you how much they've earned, but they don't always tell you that they have some problem with the credit bureau or they have some additional debt. It just seems to be something that they don't want to disclose to you.
I have a habit of asking them, do you have anything on your credit rating, on your credit background, that could be a problem to us? And that will either shake them to their roots or make them laugh and say no. And if there is nothing there, then there are no problems. But I want to know that up front. I don't want to have to find the house that's perfect for them and then find out that they've had a bad credit problem 2 or 3 years ago that I have to fight at that time. If I would have to fight the credit problem for them, and I have no problem with trying to rearrange that for them, but let's do it now. Let's do it now before we find that perfect house that they're looking for.
We look at the employment, how steady the employment is, and if the employment has been changed in the last couple of years, provided it's in the same profession, then we will still treat as continuous employment. We also look at the income, whether it's sufficient to cover all the mortgage payments and other payments that are looked at in the application.
It's very important that they understand, firstly, why you need this information in order to help them, and go through it step by step so they understand exactly what you're doing while you're doing it. So I think you have to gain their confidence and understand that, make them understand that it's in their best interest that you do a good job of pre-qualifying them.
And then we also ask the question how good the security being offered is. If the borrower doesn't pay us back, then we will be able to sell the property and pay off the loan.
The lender uses a two-tiered system to determine whether or not the customer can afford to make the payments on the mortgage. The first tier is what is referred to as the GDSR, or the gross debt service ratio, and the second tier is the TDSR, the total debt service ratio. The gross debt service ratio is a figure that represents the payment of the principal and interest and taxes, and if the customer is buying a condominium, also half of the condominium fees. In other words, those are the figures that will keep the roof over the customer's head. Those numbers should not represent more than 30% of the customer's gross income. The total debt service ratio, on the other hand, not only includes all those figures for keeping the roof over the customer's head, but in addition includes all their other outside debts. That might be a car loan, it might be credit card payments, it might be a line of credit, any other outside debts that they have. And all of those things, the cost of keeping the roof over their head plus their other outside debts, should not represent more than 40% of their gross income.
Okay. Now, as I said before, a lender will try to figure out what you can afford by looking at your gross debt ratio and your total debt ratio. Now, I've calculated these same figures based on what you've told me about your income and your other financial obligations. Now, I just think that knowing and understanding as much as you can about this stuff will simply make you more confident when it comes time to go to a lender.
And if we can't make those payments?
Well, we could first of all explore some different financial arrangements, and if that didn't work out, we'd just look at properties in a lower price range. Okay, now here's what we're looking at. Based on your income, you could qualify for a mortgage of approximately this amount. And now this figure here represents your down payment. Taken together, these two figures give us a pretty good idea of what price range you could be looking in.
It's a little nerve-wracking seeing all those zeros in a row like that.
Well, don't forget, you're not paying it all off at once, just a month at a time. And that's a crucial figure here. Can you afford the monthly mortgage payments?
And what if we don't like any of the homes in that price range?
Well, let's start here. What we can do is set up some showings, let you see some of the homes in that price range, and just see how you feel about what's available. Okay.
I think you have to have a basic grounding on the way the banks work as far as pre-qualifying the people. You have to know what percentages they use and what they use as far as background information is concerned.
You can simply say to your purchaser, okay, you've got a conditional offer, go out and get your mortgage. Send them on their way, they come back a week later and say, I didn't get it. You haven't done anything unlawful, but you certainly haven't done a very good job, and in that specific case, it costs you a commission. So I think having a really wide knowledge of financing, knowing the alternatives, knowing who does a good job on specific types of properties, that puts deals together. It helps your income, it helps your reputation, and I think it's a more professional way to do business.
For many people entering the real estate profession, financing is one of the most complex bodies of knowledge that they have to come to terms with. It's also one of the most confusing aspects of a real estate transaction as far as the purchasers are concerned. All of which means that the information is going to have to become second nature to you. You'll need to understand the mathematics of mortgage financing well enough to perform the calculations yourself, and well enough to explain the process to the potential purchaser. Financing also requires that you be something of a problem solver. Every purchaser's financial situation is different. Every lending institution has a dozen different mortgage options. You need to find the best mix and match between the purchaser's needs and the lending institution's policies and programs. As a consequence, the more you know about the policies of different lenders, banks, mortgage brokers, trust companies, private lenders, the more effective you will be in meeting people's needs. And that will mean a higher number of sales. Where a purchaser requires new financing to purchase property, the specifics of that financing must be known before an offer to purchase is drafted. The number and types of financing alternatives can be mind-boggling. There are almost as many ways to finance a purchase as there are institutions in the business of lending money. The most popular means of financing involves the use of mortgages. But even here, there are dozens of variations. As a real estate professional, you need to be able to explain the various alternatives available and provide up-to-date information on interest rates and mortgage options. Some of the more common types of mortgaging arrangements include cash to mortgage. If the purchaser has a sufficient amount of money to pay the difference between the purchase price and the balance outstanding on an existing mortgage debt, it may be possible for the purchaser simply to assume the obligations of the existing mortgage. Discharging the existing mortgage. Under this arrangement, the vendor agrees to pay off the existing mortgage, sometimes with a discharge penalty. The purchaser can then arrange for new financing for a greater amount from another lender. Increasing the existing financing. Under this arrangement, the existing mortgage is discharged and a new mortgage is arranged, but through the original lender. Arranging a second mortgage. If it is not feasible or desirable to discharge an existing mortgage, the purchaser may agree to assume it and arrange a second mortgage for the necessary extra funding. In all cases, it's up to you as a real estate professional to determine the benefits and limitations of each type of mortgage arrangement, based on the needs and situations of both the purchaser and the lender. Keeping up on all that financial information means doing a lot of homework. That's one of the problems with real estate, or maybe one of the challenges. So much of the information that you need to perform your job is constantly changing, and you need to be on top of it at all times. Well, that brings us to the end of another half hour. Let's take a moment to review some of the things we've learned. We started with a look at prospecting techniques, where and how potential buyers are located. And we covered two aspects of the qualifying stage, needs and finances, which included a detailed look at mortgages. We also saw a few more skills that you need to learn to apply. I'm thinking here of interviewing skills, leadership skills, and problem-solving skills. And I think we gained a little more insight into the kind of person that you need to be if you're going to succeed in this profession. You need to be friendly and understanding. You need to be someone who is hardworking and helpful. And you need to be informed and knowledgeable about every facet of your job. If you're getting the impression that a real estate practitioner's work is never done, you're pretty close to the truth. It's a lot of work, and it's not over yet. Next time, we'll look at the last 4 stages of a real estate transaction: showing property, preparing the offer, presenting the offer, and follow-up. We'll talk to real estate professionals about the skills, knowledge, and attributes required at each of those stages. And we'll continue to follow our real estate professional as she puts those principles into practice. I trust you'll join us.